talent then, because they can
The
most
resolution,
expensive
the
private schools
resolution
in the
states
country.
Brian
Is it 52 without the report?
Oh, no, it's 52,
the resolution states
With?
yeah, yeah,
So then,
oh, yeah. But don't worry that you have to find out where to get there. It's you know, that's all on top of it.
I got it.
it's an interesting process.
Here, how are you doing?
Except my client finally listened to me. We can't have school open there. Only said it 7 times, but
Great. Voting for me?
My favorite line from that is,
Well said. Well said, English.
that's my favorite.
Yes, we'll come as your, concept. Here he is, we'll come.
no, it gets
And we'll stay the whole first year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you'll like that. You don't have your own parents there, we'll just come along.
there's a second one on the resolution.
Just what you got. Okay, do we have everybody?
But it's still
Good evening.
They just guide legislation.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming, and those on the World Wide Web, thank you for coming and joining us this evening. Since 6 p.m. this evening, we as a Board of Education have been in closed session for purposes of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, and dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel of the district, sale or purchase of securities, investments, or investment contracts, and finally, the setting of price or sale or lease of property owned by the district. With that, I will entertain a motion to come out of closed session, please.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to come out of closed session. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Great, thank you. First of all, as we always do, want to remind everyone of our mission that's important to all of our 22 buildings and to all of us sitting here. Our mission is to educate students to be self-directed learners, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, quality producers, and community contributors. And with that, I will ask Ms. Bell for a roll call, please.
Sure. Student Ambassador present, Austin Hansen. Board members present, Donna Wanke, Terry Fielden, Jackie Romberg, Susan Crotty, Kristen Fitzgerald, and Mike Gensch.
Awesome, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to good news, which we always love.
We have some great news. First of all, I'd like to share with the Board of Education, the White House this year launched its first ever student film festival, and students across the nation were invited to submit video entries that highlight the power of technology in schools. The video entries were required to address the current innovative use of technology or the role that technology should play in the future. And I'm proud to share that Chuck Huff, art teacher at Mill Street Elementary School, and Kyle Wood, art teacher at Highlands Elementary School, and their students submitted a video entry for the White House contest. And they received word that our student's video was selected as a semifinalist. So they applied to District 203 Innovation, to the Technology Department for Innovation Funds to integrate the use of technology in several ways. The students are using technology to facilitate the creation of artwork, to collaborate through the use of district tools and applications to share, challenge, and reflect on each other's work. And the teachers are using video conferencing to co-teach their classes across the community and their students to critique and evaluate each other's art. So if this video is selected by the president's staff, it will be posted to the White House website, and we'll have a representative delegation that will attend the first viewing with the president on February 14th of this year. And the team will be here at our next Board of Education meeting, confirmation on that, head shake, yes, to present to you their innovation and how they've used technology to work. So you look forward to that great presentation. More great news. Local educators, librarians, Anderson's Bookshop, and HarperCollins Publishers are launching Naperville Reads 2014, a community-wide reading initiative featuring 12 middle grade authors from the Class Acts Literacy Program from February 3rd through 6th. Author presentations and other activities tied to the citywide program will provide opportunities for more than 9,000 local readers to share their reading experiences and enhance their understanding of featured books. Together as part of the Class Acts program, these 12 authors will visit 4th and 5th grade students in both Naperville School District 203 as well as our neighboring district, Indian Prairie 204, for pep rally-style presentations promoting the love of reading. In addition, 2 free public events will take place on Wednesday, February 5th and Thursday, February 6th at 7 p.m. at Pfeiffer Hall on the campus of North Central College. I do believe at each of your spaces you received a ticket for admission to that. Community members will get an opportunity to meet authors, hear more about their books, and have their books signed. So I'd encourage the community, as the event approaches, keep up to date on Naperville Reads through the website, www.napervillereads.org. And I'd also just point out that Anderson's Bookshop is one of our school business partners that will be recognized next week at our school business partnership breakfast. Anything you'd like to contribute to that, Julie? Anything else? Okay. And then great, one more piece of good news, just a reminder to join us for the rescheduled Future Focus documentary screening tomorrow, February 4th in the Naperville North High School Auditorium. A reception will be at 6:30, followed by the film at 7 o'clock. And, of course, because it is Future Focus, it couldn't happen without a weather event. So I thought I'd like to share with everybody that from the National Weather Service tomorrow, snow with areas of blowing snow, steady temperature around 23, north wind 10 to 15 miles an hour with gusts as high as 25 miles per hour, and the chance of precipitation is 100%. New snow accumulation of 2 to 4 inches possible tomorrow evening. So it wouldn't be Future Focus if we didn't have some sort of weather event, but I think we can handle that one tomorrow, and I look forward to the debut of the documentary from our great friends at Naperville Community TV 17. Another school business partner we'll be recognizing next week. So that's our great news for tonight.
Awesome, thank you. Love, love, love great news. The next thing on our agenda is public comment, and those people that are either new, watching this online, streaming online, or here, if I could just explain to you, everyone has an opportunity to speak before the board at all of our meetings, and if you're an individual, you can speak for 3 minutes, and if you're representing a group, 5 minutes. And if anyone did not have a chance to fill out a half a sheet of paper or quarter sheet of paper, that's usually at the front door, and you'd like to speak, please make yourself known. We're here and we're here to listen. If not, and I don't see anybody giving me any kind of signal, we will move on to Student Ambassador Report. Austin.
Hello, guys. I won't be here this next board meeting because I'll be at the Chris Herron thing, and this is the last time I'll be kind of talking about this. But Chris Herron will be coming to Naperville North High School, speaking to the community February 18th and to the school on February 19th, and we're super excited to have him come. I've mentioned this for the past several months, and so just to show my enthusiasm for it, because he's really awesome. Lots of news and events coming up, and I'm going to try to cover what I would have said last time or next meeting too. Our varsity cheerleaders qualified for state on Sunday. We wish them luck as they travel to Bloomington this weekend to compete in the ISHA state finals. Our Husky wrestlers finished out their DVC season this last weekend. The Huskies were led by DVC champion Brandon Gilligan. Runners-up include Luke Landiak and Chris Zhang, and we have many other honorable mentions, bronze medalists and stuff like that. Tremendous effort. The girls' gymnastic team finished 5th place at their DVC conference meet last Friday night. The gymnastics team will host the regional meet this Wednesday night up in the gymnastic gym beginning at 6:30 p.m. Naperville North Senior Variety Show is also this Wednesday night at 7 p.m. in the North Performing Arts Center. It's a great show showcasing many of our seniors' talents, and it's always full house. Our spring blood drive is February 13th from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is open to the public as well, and is an easy way to give back and save lives. So if you're free and willing to give blood, that's a great opportunity to do so. Our girls' orchestra show is coming up. They work very hard at this all year. It's a huge event, and they will be performing every night at 7 p.m. February 20th through the 22nd at the North Performing Arts Center. The Naperville North High School Booster Club will be hosting our annual senior fashion show Sunday, February 23rd. It's our Booster Club's largest fundraiser, and we have more than 150 seniors walking on the runway. I'm actually one of the MCs, so if you're free, please come out and support. And otherwise, that's pretty much all I have.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last time you were here, you mentioned there was a Central versus North basketball game.
Yeah. It was a good.
Was everybody wearing purple?
Everyone was wearing purple. Yes.
That's all in here. Well done. You're quite a diplomat, Austin.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Superintendent staff report.
Great. As I'm introducing them, I'll invite Mr. Sun and Mr. Davis to come forward. But this evening, we're going to give the Board of Education an update on the Project Lead the Way program, which is currently in place at our 5 junior high schools. John David Sun and Brent Davis are here to lead or begin the presentation, and I think we have some guest presenters that will be joining them partially through.
Good evening, everybody. We're here tonight to give you an update and an overview on our work with Project Lead the Way over the last few years. My name is John David Sun. Brent Davis is here with me. He's our project manager for Project Lead the Way. We've also got some of our Project Lead the Way teachers that are here with us tonight. Mark Kolakowski from Lincoln Junior High, Rob Vanasek from Jefferson Junior High, Howard Korn from Washington Junior High, and Mike Click from Kennedy could not be here this evening. We've got some students that are here as well as some of their projects. We'll introduce them here in a little bit because they've got an important part in our presentation this evening. Our outcomes for tonight are to provide an overview of the Project Lead the Way program, to understand the district's implementation of Project Lead the Way, and also to understand next steps and opportunities within the program. We wanted to start by talking about what is Project Lead the Way. Project Lead the Way is the leading provider of rigorous and innovative STEM education curricular programs used in the elementary, middle, and high schools across the country. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Project Lead the Way is in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia, has over 5,000 schools that have implemented their curriculum and content, and it's been in place since 1997. The Project Lead the Way curriculum is founded in the fundamental problem-solving and critical thinking skills that are taught in traditional CTE courses. It integrates national academic and technical learning standards and STEM principles. Arnie Duncan called it one of the great models of the new CTE succeeding all across the country. It was also cited by the Harvard Graduate School as a model of 21st century career and technical education. When we talk about STEM, we know that Project Lead the Way is an excellent program, an excellent curriculum and content that we, along with other districts, have implemented for our students to start gaining some of these STEM skills that are out there. We also think it's important to understand about the STEM skills and the STEM jobs that are out there. So we pulled some information from the U.S. Department of Commerce that talks about STEM jobs will grow by 17% by the year 2018, which is double the growth of any other non-STEM field. By 2018, the U.S. will have more than 1.2 million unfilled STEM jobs because there will not be enough qualified workers. We want to talk a little bit about the District 203 middle school technology education timeline. And before we go into some specifics with the Project Lead the Way program, we wanted to give you a little historical perspective. Before 1996, we had a program in place that was called Manufacturing and Construction. That really focused on how structures were built, the building trades, and overview of manufacturing. It was a very traditional industrial tech program. We took a look in 1996 at other programs that were out there, trying to look at programs that had more of a technology education component to it. The cost of the manufacturing and construction curriculum was becoming very intensive. A lot of the materials that were being used by the students were becoming very expensive, and we also wanted to find a more modern curriculum that met the needs of the students at that time. So in 1996, the district implemented the LabVolt curriculum in all the middle school applied technology labs. LabVolt was a modular-based technology education program that was used up until 2011, and some of the modules that could be found in LabVolt were things like audio-video production, desktop publishing, electronics, space and rockets, and CNC mill. At the end of 2011, the district, we were at a crossroads. We had a decision to make. We had most of our equipment was up for renewal with LabVolt. There was a hefty price tag associated with that. But we also knew it was time to really reevaluate that program and look at what are the right skills and the right tools and the right applications for our students to be learning within this applied technology curriculum. So it was during the 2011-2012 school year that the Project Lead the Way Gateway to Technology Middle School program was formed, where we started looking at other schools. We had some site visits where we visited not only districts in and around us, but also in other states to take a look at their implementation. We also looked at the training process that would be involved for our teachers, and began coming up with an implementation plan for Project Lead the Way. You'll hear us refer to Gateway to Technology, or GTT, throughout the rest of the presentation. That's Project Lead the Way's middle school program. So GTT is their middle school program. So in 2011-12 was our implementation planning year. We had teachers that went through a very rigorous training process. For all units that we teach through the Project Lead the Way curriculum, our teachers have to go to a 2-week training course. And right now they go down to University of Illinois in Champaign. So they spend 2 weeks where they are doing hands-on learning. They go through the modules, they go through the curriculum, they do a lot of the projects that the students do as well, and they have to do that for each of the units that they teach. So then beginning in 2012, we started our 3-year implementation plan with Project Lead the Way in all 5 district middle schools. And Brent's going to walk you through what that has looked like with our courses.
So the first year that we started the Project Lead the Way Gateway to Technology program, we had all the 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders take the design and modeling course. That was the first year. We're now currently in our 2nd year of implementation. So this year, our 6th graders are enrolled in the design and modeling, and our 7th and 8th graders are taking automation and robotics. The reason for that is that by the time we're through the year 2015, then everybody will be on the final schedule as far as that goes. So next year, the 6th graders will be doing design and modeling. That's going to be their course from here on out. And then we're going to start up with energy and environment for the 7th and 8th graders. So that way, by the time we get to 2015, the current 7th graders will have all 3 middle school Project Lead the Way courses when they move on to the high school. So it's just kind of a way we had to jumble the courses up so they'd roll out correctly by 2015 to 16. So when you hit 2015-16, all 6th graders will be having the 6th grade design and modeling, energy and environment will be 7th grade courses, and automation robotics will be the 8th grade course. And we put the automation robotics there in 8th grade because of the robotics clubs that the high schools now are starting to get deep into. And I wanted to be able to keep those kids' interest high going from the middle school to the high school. There was some talk about putting that at the 7th grade level, but I thought that year off was kind of like let them forget a little bit. So that's why we went with that schedule as far as that's going. Now I'll cover some of the highlights of what the courses are the kids are taking. The design and modeling course is the foundation course for Project Lead the Way Gateway to Technology. That's the introductory to engineering course that Project Lead the Way has. In that unit, students will learn about engineering notebooks and why engineers have to keep notebooks, why they have to keep it as their property and their company's property, the correct way to enter and write in an engineering notebook, and the importance of keeping notes and keeping track of what you're doing when you're trying to solve problems when you're working in industry or designing or engineering. So along with that, that also fulfills some of the Common Core standards that we're now working towards as far as technical writing, understanding complex text, and using shapes and geometric figures to design and to solve problems. And up on the screen is a couple examples of some of the things that the kids are working on. There's a unit where the kids will work with sketching and dimensioning, where they learn how to do a front view, side view, top view drawings, sketches, dimensioning those so that there's a good way to communicate their ideas from one person to the next, and they keep track of all that in their engineering notebook. Once we move from the sketching and dimensioning, there is the Autodesk 3D Inventor software that they will be learning on. On the pictures there, the picture on the left is a pegboard toy, those ones that you just pound with a mallet, and the kids actually individually build each part, and then they assemble it in the 3D Inventor program. And then on the right is just a regular basic startup sketch plan cube that they start off with to learn the program so they can see all the different functions in that particular program. And on the next slide, one of the projects that the kids work on that's a design project, and they follow a specific set of steps to go through when they work on the design projects, is a furniture design. They can go everything from the constraints to the criteria of me. I am the customer. I tell them what they need to have in their furniture design project, and they have to follow all those criteria, all the other items I want, and they have to design it, decide using a decision matrix how to come up with the right idea. They have to sketch all their ideas in their engineering notebook, at least 3 ideas, so they can come up with a way to decide which one's a good one. And then the next is a measuring activity, which is called the skimmer, floor skimmer project. In that, it's actually a measurement. We give the kids a plan of a skimmer. Floor skimmer is kind of the just a vehicle that slides across the floor that you launch with a rubber band. And they have to take those measurements off that plan, reproduce them by measurement into paper, cut them out correctly, assemble them all together so they can have a skimmer that will work. And then once they get the skimmer working, they have to record every attempt and what they did to innovate it and make it work the best that they can. Attached to this is a video, and in this video I've got a couple students that are testing their skimmers. The girl on the left is going to go first. She's going to pull back the skimmer, and we're going to see if this is probably a second attempt, if I remember right. They pull it back, that's attached to a rubber band, and then we release it. The object is to go as far down the hallway as possible, and we have a contest at my school. We see who can make the most efficient skimmer, and then I announce it on the PA and the announcements and stuff. And now the other, can you play that one more time? The other girl, she's not quite successful. This is probably their first try. Her skimmer, let's see what happens here. This one is not too bad. I think they've innovated this and changed some things on that one. And the next student on the right, she's going to give it an attempt. And after each one of these attempts, they're to go in. That didn't go too far. They're going to go back to their engineering notebook, record the results, and then record also not only just the results, but what they did to problem solve those issues to make it better. Failure is something we're going to tell them that they are going to experience all the time. That's something that we try to train them. That's part of being an engineer or design is failure. The next course that they take in 7th and 8th grade this year is automation robotics. This one's taken off like crazy. The kids love this automation robotics. They study in the history of robotics, how automation robotics are affecting manufacturing, how it affects them in their life and society, the positive and negative aspects of automation robotics. They also learn about mechanical systems, how to transfer energy efficiently from one direction to another, how computers control automated systems, gearing, gear ratios, how gears are used in manufacturing and automation. And then they also will make, as a final project, a robot that performs specific tasks. And that, again, goes back to problem solving, trying to get it, one, to work correctly, two, how do you get it to do what it's supposed to do. And that's using the VEX robotics system. And then when they start off with automation robotics, first thing that they work on is a test bed. They use the VEX equipment. There's a Cortex, which is a hard drive. There's different types of sensors like push sensors, limit switches, light sensors, motors, tires, claws. They assemble that, and then they learn how to program those things to operate by using that Cortex or that hard drive that's on their test bed. Then they also, next thing they work on is the gear train assemblies. They have 9 or 10 different types of gear trains they have to learn, and then they have to also construct those using the VEX equipment. Next. Okay, and then after they get used to building with the VEX equipment and using the gear trains, they will construct and build the old-fashioned pull toy, like you used to pull around the house and the dog's tail would wag and all that kind of stuff. But now they're using the VEX equipment so they can see how that works. And part of the problem-solving issue with this is to take the rotary force generated by the tires and transfer it to a different axis up on top of the toy using those different gears that they just learned about in the previous project. So I've got an example here of a pull toy. If you watch a little bit here, they're pulling it along and they're taking the rotational force of the tires, and they've got a sign of some type rotating on a different axis as they're pulling the toy across the hallway floor. So that's how that project works. And then the last project they're working on is the robot construction and programming. And this, they actually make what we call a square bot. And the square bot is just a basic robot chassis with 2 motors, 4 tires, and they have to gear that up to do specific problems. In my class, I like to have them program that robot to go as fast as possible 50 feet down the hallway. And then once they program it to go as fast as possible, then they have to also program it to be as accurate as possible, to stop as close to the finish line as possible. So far, the best I've had, and it just happened this morning, was a 1/4 inch from the line. Wow. So they were able to program it 50 feet from the start, a 1/4 inch from the line that I'm measuring them at there. And I've got an example of that on the video here too. And the girls, they're allowed to nudge it because we can't program the irregular shape of the floor as it's going down the hallway. So you'll see them kind of like, they're not mad at the robot. They're just trying to keep it going down in the middle of the hallway. So you'll see a tape mark on the hallway floor here in a little bit where they're trying to get that robot to stop as close as possible to that stopping point. It's coming up here a little bit. Right there you can kind of see it's kind of shiny. And they just missed it by like 2 squares. So they'll go back, document their successes or failures, what they did to innovate it and change it, come out and keep trying it. It's a very long process, and I want it to be a long process because that's how life really is. It's not something I'm going to tell them how they have to figure it out on their own. And the last course that they're going to be, kids will be taking will be next year, Energy and Environment, and that it's a environmental course where it's kids will study the impact of energy, alternative energy on their environment and in their life. They'll design and model different types of energy sources. They'll make and construct a wind turbine model, and they have to build the most efficient wind turbine blades to get that model to work correctly by using a fan to actually activate the wind turbine. And they have to lift a certain amount of weight with that wind turbine so they can see that it's working. They also will put together an energy expo where they will do some research and on different types of alternative energies and the effects, the positive and negative effects on the environment and society, so they can have a kind of a jigsaw puzzling activity within the class. And then they'll also go around the house or around the school with energy meters to actually see how much energy it takes to run specific appliances around the labs in the school. So they can plug in a light bulb and see how much it's using. They can plug in a big fan, see how much it's using. So those are some of the activities we'll be working on when we go to Energy and Environment next year with the 7th and 8th graders.
Thank you, Brent. So now the best part of the presentation. We're going to ask our students to come up. We've got 2 students this evening from Jefferson Junior High, Luca Turano and Jake Kaufman. They're going to come up with their teacher, Mr. Vanasek, and they're going to talk to us and show us some of the projects and work that they've done in some of the classes that they've taken.
Hi.
You can pick it up if it's easier.
Okay. Hi, I'm Luca,
And I'm Jake.
and so we're here to talk about our experiences.
So what is the engineering?
Oh yeah.
We're starting off with the design and modeling process, or I guess like curriculum. And first is what is engineering? And we
So with what is engineering, we go over the different types of engineers, what they do. We do a unit where we'll go and we each get to research an engineer, and then we end up making a poster or making a presentation that we show to the class, and we get to show everybody what that is. And then after that, we kind of learn about what the engineers do, and then that goes into STEM, because depending on what engineer it is, most of them will all use STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math. And then
for the design process, when we started, we had a 9-step design process, and it's been like decreased to 6. So it's just kind of like creating an idea, kind of like going like
you create the idea, and then you'll go and you'll test it out. So after you get everything set up, you go and test it out. Then you go and you'll test it, and then based on your results, you'll potentially have to test and then innovate it 4 or 5 times. And then so an example of that we have is the furniture design, which is one of the pieces of curriculum that we do. And then so for that, I chose to do a locker shelf. And then so with the locker shelf, it has 3 shelves, and then it has a hollowed out part on one side to hold your like phone or calculator, and then on the other side it has like an extra container for pencils. So I'll pass around or my computer sketch of that.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And then for the measurement part of it, that's when you would make the skimmer. So you'd either pick to use the
Metric system or standard system.
and just kind of like sketch it out and like see what goes well and what goes wrong, and like add what you think needs to be added.
So then students have the options of using standard or using metric. And then so some people would choose standard just because they're more used to that. But then some people would choose metric just because metric's more exact and could produce better results. And then the next topic is sketching and documenting, or and dimensioning. So that is where we learn more about measurement, and then we learn how to take our ideas and sketch them out for real-life examples. So with that, we also use the program Inventor, which is a 3D program. And then so here's an isometric view of the locker shelf.
And
Austin,
then
can you do that?
And then in my engineering notebook, I just had a couple like sketches that you can look through and pass around.
And then, so using Inventor, you can make 3D models, and then if you wanted to, you can, with the final step, which is designing for production, you can take that 3D model, and at Naperville North, they have a 3D printer, and so that actual locker shelf that I made, I ended up getting printed out. I just forgot to bring that.
No worries.
Mr. Vanasak forgot to bring that tonight. Nice cover.
Team player, team player. I like that.
So that's what you learn in 6th grade. And then this year for us, 7th and 8th grade, we're learning about automation and robotics. And then, so this is an example that we brought in.
So for the gear ratios, the input would be when you turn the crank, you would turn these two chain sprockets, and the gear ratio for this first one is 1:1 because when it turns, it's one full revolution, and the output has another revolution. And then for the second one, it is 2:5, so this one turns 5 times, as this one only turns twice. And then for the cam and follower, it's 1 because it turns one, it goes around once and it drops once.
So this is trying to just an example of what the what a gear ratio really is. So with this right here, this is the cam, this is the follower. So if I start right here at 12 o'clock, I spin it. By the time I get back to 12 o'clock, this has dropped. So it's one full revolution. And if the gear ratio was different, then what would potentially happen is for one turn of this, instead of one turn, I'd potentially have to do 2 or 3 to make this drop, or in one turn, this would drop 2 or 3 times.
Right.
And then, so this was made for the 2.2.5 survival challenge. And then that was challenge number 4, which is you have to build a device that will crush grain, pump water, and chop firewood. So what I did for this is the chain drives will pulverize the grain, so you have flour. And then that connects to a 12-inch axle, which turns the cam and follower. And then so with the cam and follower, this would be the pump for pumping water. And then off of that, I have this length of metal with a gusset attached to the end, and the gusset represents a axe. So so every time it drops, it would be cutting some wood. Then if there was a conveyor belt on this, when it drops back down, this would kind of push away the wood that was just cut. And then you'd be able to do the next piece. And then we ended up adding this for an example for what 8th grade would do next year. This is a wind turbine, which is what you'd be learning about in the 8th grade curriculum. And then so with this, the flow of power is reversible because I can either crank it from the input right here, or I could crank it from the wind turbine right here. I can crank it by hand, then in real life it would work the same way. So if it was like windy outside, or if it was windy enough to turn the wind turbine, you'll be able to use that. So it's like an alternative source of energy instead of having to have a motor on it cranking it the whole time. And then the direction of travel is not reversible because if I were to try turning it in the opposite direction instead of this way, instead of turning it how you would normally turn it, if I were to turn it in the opposite direction, it would not work because of the cam. The cam would hit the follower, and the follower would not be able to go up.
Very good. Great. Do we know what the gear ratio is right here?
Yeah, oh, we already said that.
Did you explain all that? You
Yes.
mentioned why it's 2 to 5.
Yes.
Great.
Awesome. Just outstanding. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Yeah, it is.
Gentlemen, before you guys go, would you please come back and kind of explain to the board what your own personal project that you're working on as a result of being in Project Lead the Way? You want to share that with everybody?
Both of us are in our Project Lead the Way students, but also we are computer club members. And so in computer club and taking some of our own personal time outside of school and during our lunch and supervised study, we have been coming into Mr. V's room and we have been working on a grant for Jefferson Junior High School to get a 3D printer. So instead of getting a 3D printer like North, which is like a full 3D printer for production, we wanted to get a smaller desktop version that would still print out objects about the size of a chess piece. So students in 6th grade will be able to use that so they can really see their design. And then 7th and 8th grade will also be able to help that. And then it would help teachers throughout the school who would want an example. They'd be able to either have a student sketch it out on Inventor, or they'd be able to take some time and sketch it out, then have it printed for a real-life example. And then also 8th grade students, at least in Jefferson, they do a scale unit, and it's optional, but so we figured that right around 100 students would use it. So with that, they would integrate the 3D printer. So instead of sketching out by hand a two-dimensional drawing, instead they would make a 3D version on Inventor, and then they'd turn in a 3D and then a real-life 4D version of it for 8th grade.
Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Are you going to co-author the actual grant? Or I'm sorry, the request for the grant. The students are. I think having read those for many years and sitting on those committees, it's. I always had a soft spot in my heart when the students were a big part of it. So, good job. Good job. Awesome.
Gentlemen,
work.
if you don't mind, you can go back to your seats, but if you'll just wait until the presentation's done, our board members may have questions for you after the gentlemen finish with the rest of the presentation that they may want to ask you to answer. So if you'll hang with us for a little bit, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And John David, I'll turn it back to you.
It's a tough act to follow, but I'm going to try to wrap up here with our next steps with Project Lead the Way. We want to highlight a few things that we're going to continue to do moving forward with the program, and then some ideas and some innovations that we have to continue to further it. One of the things per our agreement with Project Lead the Way is for us to form an advisory committee. And that's something that we're going to look to start this spring to form a Project Lead the Way GTT Middle School Advisory Committee that would consist of staff, parents, and business partners. Kind of coinciding with that is looking to start to offer a district middle school STEM night once a year. We were hoping to be able to share with you some of the things that we saw from our visit to 204 STEM night, but the cold weather forced us not to be able to see that last week. But we are gonna have an opportunity to visit some other schools that have implemented this STEM night in cooperation with some of their area business partners, and kind of learn from some of the things that have worked well for them and how we could implement a similar model here in 203. We're going to continue to explore the offering of Project Lead the Way GTT courses during summer school to provide additional opportunities for our students prior to entering high school. You heard Mr. Davis talk about the 3 units that we offer for our students. There's actually 5 total units in the GTT program. The design and modeling, the energy and environment, and automation and robotics are the 3 that we offer. There's also the magic of electrons and space and flight. So those are the other 2 units within the GTT program that we are not offering. One of the things that we're going to explore is, as our students go through those 3 units, could we potentially leverage summer school as an opportunity to offer those other 2 units for students that have an interest in the program. We're going to continue to communicate to parents and students the connections between our middle school GTT courses and our high school STEM courses. This is some work that we've actually started this year in some of our collaborations with myself, Mr. Davis, and our high school ICs from the CTE department, and taking a look at our CTE courses that align with some of our Project Lead the Way courses. And one of the things that we inserted this year in the course book that went out for students for registration is a statement that talks about, for students that have taken Project Lead the Way courses and have an interest in that content and curriculum, here are some recommended next courses at the high school level that we would recommend that you take a look at, such as drafting and architecture and things like that. So that was a first step with that. That's something that we're going to continue to evaluate and improve on and provide a pathway for our students. We're going to continue to explore the Project Lead the Way curriculum for other grade level appropriate STEM classes and curriculum. Project Lead the Way actually just this year launched an elementary program. They're in a pilot version of that. Myself and our Director of Curriculum and Instruction had a conference call with them about a month ago to learn a little bit more about that and some of the local districts that are a part of that pilot process. And lastly is to continue communication with parents, students, and community members about the program through our newsletter. I believe you have a copy of one of those recent newsletters that was in your version of Board Docs for you to take a look at. And with that, we will take any questions that you have. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I really want to thank the students. You guys are amazing, and it really helps to see what you love and how you love it. And maybe, when I would love to hear, because I would guess that it's probably one of the bright spots of your day is going to this class and getting to do those things. And, some kids love math and some kids love music. And, this is just one more thing to get you, you could tell how completely engaged you are in what you're doing. And your vocabulary that goes along with this, the curriculum, was really impressive. So I really just want to pat you on the backs and say thank you for that. I have a question for you. So when you're in 7th and 8th grade, you choose either a language or this program. What % of the kids choose the wheel as opposed to the language?
Do you have that statistic? I don't have the exact number right now, but it's at one point it was 50-50, but now it's slipping more towards foreign language than towards the exploratory side. So it's and I don't know the reason for that. Maybe
Mr. Ross could speak to that a little bit too. Yep.
Project Lead the Way is still new enough. We're not certain if it's having much of an influence, but the early data, it does look like we have more students just this year. Hot off the presses, Brent. Current 6th graders selecting courses for next year for 7th grade. It does look like we have more, at least 3 of the schools choosing the exploratory wheel than in recent years.
Because I hate to see them lose out on that chance. It's not an equal turn. Do we still do the science summer camps that we used to do? We do. So would this replace them, augment them? What do you see that? My question was...
Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
We're going to let, I'll go ahead and let Kane answer that. He's going to look at summer school.
The summer school committee is developing recommendations, and it won't have anything that specific, but it will look at ways to increase access to courses kids can take, and Project Lead the Way would be something that would be considered side by side with that science group. They could go together, and then we would let the interest of the kids drive what is run in the summer.
I just know what a huge difference. We used to do the science camps, and they built trebuchets one year, and I had a nice little metal ball go through my window from my budding scientist. So I know how much, they love doing it. Let's see. Is there any difference in the boys versus girls that take the class? Like, you know, because you're on the wheel, and so you also have facts and music
and art.
Yeah, so, but the music falls out in 7th grade, correct? So, is there a difference? I was just curious, Bob.
We've not noticed a gender difference.
Okay. Oh, and my last question was, these projects seem very collaborative when the kids are working on them together. One of my adopted schools junior highs that I was recently at, I noticed that the room wasn't really updated. It's still kind of those caroly booths. But some of the other pictures look like more round tables and things like that. Does that change how the instruction is delivered?
We actually have, through our district's innovation process, we actually have an innovation that's been proposed to take a look at the configuration of the Project Lead the Way room. And that's one of the things that our innovation team will take a look at in reviewing. I know the building that was articulated through kind of spoke to some of the points that you did, as well as that the modules and the cubes, those were really, some of those were designed as a part of the Lab Vault and the Applied Tech, and there are some opportunities to improve that, I believe, yeah.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting. I mean, I think when you can get your hands dirty doing that, I mean, even just looking through whoever's book it was, the sketchbook that you had, you can tell over, the time how much you improved at doing it. And just, how you even centered it on the paper and your description of it. I mean, I'm very impressed by both your presentation and what this has to offer. So thank you for sharing tonight. Kristen?
Oh, sorry. Thanks for coming. It's really fun to hear from the students. And Jefferson is my adopted school this year, so I'm really excited to see all of you. I've been there a number of times. I haven't seen you. I have a question for the students. I was just doing some research about science education, and it was talking about the importance of the middle school years in terms of looking at your future. So that if you are in middle school and you find science boring, that you're less likely to take classes in high school that are science related. But if you find it really interesting, you'd be more likely to even decide on high school courses and even further, just based on the interest level in middle school. So I wanted to ask all of you, do you think that this is more interesting than your science that you had in elementary school? And do you think that anything that you've seen in your courses has been something that piqued your interest, that you might be interested in studying going into high school or further?
With me, really, I just chose my high school courses, and a lot of them are, I want to try to get my math and science good, because then also it will apply into my other classes that I want to take. And so I'm trying to do really good at that. A lot of courses, this year I didn't really do a lot for tech. I did one, but then next year and the year after that I was kind of planning ahead, and there's a lot that I'm planning on doing. Just based on being in Mr. Vanasek's class, I've already decided that a few things that I definitely want to do. I'm planning on taking College of DuPage classes, and I'm planning on doing an internship when I get to high school. So there's a lot of stuff that just based on this class I've chosen that I really piques my interest.
Great.
Going along with like Lucas said, like just really kind of like open the doors and like realize like what is out there, and kind of like help me like I guess like get like a start on like what high school classes like pique my interest.
Congratulations. It sounds like the research is correct. That's really exciting to the teachers and to the school district and to the students. Thanks.
Thank you as well. I thought you guys did a wonderful job. I'm just curious as to when you were in the position of 6th grade making the decision to take this versus the language. What drove your decision?
With me, it was a lot of different things. In 6th grade, we didn't know that we were going to change the unit, but kind of based on stuff that we're doing in computer club and similar things, I really knew that I wanted to end up doing this, and I like this curriculum a lot. And some of the things that were in the old curriculum are now in computer club. So some of those things I'm still able to do, but at the same time, I really like this new unit a lot better. And just kind of when I was thinking about a foreign language or the tech classes, I really knew I wanted to do the tech classes because I was thinking about this. So I started off and I did computer club. And that it was only like me and two of my friends. We didn't really know what we were going to do. So we ended up going and we do it, and that kind of really piqued our interest. So now there's a lot of stuff that we all do based on that. That's how we kind of, we really all really like tech class, and there's just a lot of stuff that ends up coming through that.
Thank you.
I just kind of felt like, even though like there's like so many different options with foreign language, I mean, deciding this early in like my, I guess like my schooling career, I just thought I needed to wait like a little bit longer, just kind of get to see like what really interests me.
So we've just made that decision in our household with a sixth grader, and they have chosen your track, but with this presentation, I don't think we would have even had a discussion. So, yeah, I think it's really wonderful what we have to offer. I like Susan, wonder about, I think foreign language is equally important. I just wish that we could somehow offer both options to our junior high students, because I know my students going through honors courses have been struggled with that, the decision between the two. So I commend both of you. Thank you for your time and your wonderful presentation.
Any other questions?
Which aspect of engineering do you think you'd want to go in career-wise? Have you thought about that?
I was just looking at like for high school courses. I was like I'm doing drafting, so I was looking and I saw like architectural like feeds into that. So that was what
question there.
With me, a lot of the courses that we're taking now are kind of influencing it, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that we do in these classes that I'm planning on taking in high school to kind of, I know generally that I do want to get in the technology field, but I don't know exactly where, so I'm planning on kind of experimenting in high school, taking a few different courses, and then refining what I end up wanting to do, and then based on that, my junior, senior year, I'm going to do either an internship or a College of DuPage class. Just based on what I end up wanting to do. But as of right now, I really like designing and drafting.
Well, that's awesome. And the nice part about what you're learning is you're learning some hands-on experience and allowing yourself to fail. Where a lot of engineers get tripped up is they create something, then they can't figure out why somebody can't build it. And that's really, once you can translate what your design is into something that somebody can build tangibly, you're going to succeed very well. But engineering is not for everybody, but you guys are certainly cut out for it. I can see that because you've got the skill set to visualize in 3D and then translate it from your hands into something creative. So,
Did I understand you're both in 7th grade? 8th grade. That's remarkable. Oh, my goodness. That's remarkable. Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much. Oh, I'm sorry, Austin. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I grew up with a lab vault, and oh my gosh, this is so much cooler than lab vault. You guys are actually doing things instead of just doing conceptual, like, I don't know, sitting around a computer. This is so cool. Actually seems like a class. Not that lab vault wasn't, but like this is like so much cooler. I just had one question for my fellow patriots because I went to Jefferson too. Did you have any interest with robotics before taking the class? Like, what inspired you to kind of continue on with it?
Well, I didn't really like know much or like have any like recollection of like what robotics is.
Sure.
So this kind of like opened my eyes.
That's really cool.
The same sort of thing with me, but then also when I was just choosing my classes, it was kind of based on what we currently had, and through Computer Club, I did some of the 8th grade modules like sooner, like I did CNC.
Yeah.
So I did that, and so that kind of brought me to, I really want to do that, and CNC was a little bit of manufacturing and design. So I really liked that once I got to 7th grade, it was the same sort of thing, but it was almost like a newer version. Instead of having it carved out through a CNC, and it's only a 2D model, instead now it's a 3D model that I can design and then either make using the parts that we have or get it 3D printed.
So would you say like this class and the curriculum kind of sparked that interest then?
Yeah, I think it really did. If I had continued with LabVault, I'd probably do similar courses, but I wouldn't do as many. I'd probably be choosing different classes that I want to take, and this really sparked a lot of interest in all the different tech fields that I was thinking about.
Really cool. Make sure you join the robotics team next year. It'd be cool.
From a fellow Husky, I love that. I have to say, gentlemen, I wish the NEF trustees that will be reviewing your grant could see this infomercial tonight, because exactly, and we just have to. We have an NEF representative right here in the group that sits on the NEF board from our Board of Education. So that's how. Phenomenal. Thank you so much. We've learned a lot.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
I'd just like to quickly acknowledge the rest of the staff that is here. I know Mr. Kay is in the back there. I can't see anybody else. But as a parent of a student in Project Lead the Way right now, I know, speak firsthand, that I know I have an 8th grade boy who really enjoys what he's doing. So great work to the whole team, everybody here. So thank you for all you're doing.
Thanks. Thanks.
What else are we doing? Are we all? Sorry, I do not have a report this evening, but if there's anyone else, any other Board of Education, my colleagues that have a report? Susan, I saw your hand first.
I just wanted to report that from the Naperville Education Foundation and Yucks for Youth, we had a great turnout, and I really wanted to extend a huge thank you to you and your staff that attended. I don't think I've ever seen as much staff there as I saw that evening, and I know some people drive from really far, and I know that there's lots of other things to do. And we really, really appreciate that vote of confidence and for you making time, if you could, to be there. So thank you so much.
One piece of homework that you've heard tonight. Any other comments? Board Members, great. Thank you so much. Yes, well, I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda as proposed.
Second.
Presented.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second for the adoption of the personnel report. Ms. Bell?
Romberg?
Yes.
Crotty?
Yes.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Wanke?
Yes.
Yench?
Aye.
Fielden?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
One of the items contained within that consent report on the personnel report was the appointment of an interim director of communications. So I'd like to introduce Faith Bear, who's in the back. She's familiar to many of you, who's done consulting work for the district in communications a number of times. So we're pleased to have Faith join us on an interim basis as we begin the work on selecting a new director of communications. So Faith, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. We know that Faith has been around, really understands our community. So certainly for me, that's very, very important. You have to know the community you're communicating with. So thank you. And now we can see we can clearly see Faith. But thank you so much. Our next agenda item is 2014-2015 general and optional fees.
Annually, we review our general and optional fees as well as course fees. So tonight, Chief Financial Officer Brad Kaufman will speak to the Board of Education about recommendations for your consideration and for future consideration regarding some of our general and optional fees. And then during our meetings, I believe in April, am I right, Mr. Ross? April or March? Yes. In a future meeting, we'll be reviewing our course fees. So these are the general and optional fees. And I'll turn it over to our CFO, Brad Kaufman.
And if I could just interrupt real quickly, this discussion, as well as a couple of other items, are discussion without action. So it's just our first discussion and presentation from staff. Thank you.
Included in the board docs is a report along with an attachment that shows the fees for the district from fiscal year 07-08 clear through the proposed 14-15. You can see there's been minor changes over those many years. We did want to highlight a few things, though. The first one we'd highlight, we're recommending an increase of $10 per month in the Ann Reed tuition for preschool. And then we noted several of the items that we're beginning some research that we'll be researching over this next year and be probably having some more discussions. And when we come back for the next year for fees, we have some more findings for you to consider at that time.
So the recommendation for your consideration at a future board meeting is only one increase, and that's the Ann Reed Early Childhood fee from $235 to $245. So Brad or I will take any questions that you have at this time.
Any questions?
So I was just curious as to, with the high school optional fees, there are a number of different clubs here, but then there's also a whole list of other clubs that don't necessarily have a fee. So how is that determined? And Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I can a little. I did inquire of the high schools today, and asking about, well, what fees are on here, because there's some club fees. Some of the fees that you might be thinking of are actually might be not actual fees collected with the district. Like, for example, I think they gave rugby or lacrosse. There's some fees with those, but those aren't really district fees. That's really a club that's working in conjunction with the district. But then there's some others. They're kind of more. The club might be charging us some, like if they're going on a field trip or a rock climbing event or something like that. It's not really a district fee per se. It's more of this time they're doing that, the sponsor is informing the children, the students, they know well in advance, and if they want to participate and do that, they'd be that additional fee. But it's not an established district fee, if you will.
It's been a while since I paid preschool tuition. How does that, Ann Reed, change? How does that look in terms of the market, what you'd have for a similar type of preschool? I think it seems relatively in the range or low even,
well,
still.
Right. There would really be two types of tuition out there that parents might be considering to pay for preschool. There would be the private preschool. Those tuition fees are typically higher. They can be as much as $800 a month.
Okay.
For some, but for as far as public school preschool,
Okay.
That really is in the line. Neighboring district is $245. Several other people, that's a very common $245, $250.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Sorry, any other questions or comments? Again, this is discussion without action, our first presentation from staff for the 2014-2015 general and optional fees. Okay, we'll move on to our next agenda item, and that is the first reading of online blended consortium intergovernmental agreement phase 2.
We had hoped to have for the Board of Education tonight the first draft of an intergovernmental agreement with the remaining districts in the online and blended consortium. Legal counsel for represented districts are continuing to work on that IGA. So once that's completed, we will bring that forward for your consideration. But at this time, it's not been completed. So it's not a first read.
It's not a first read. We left it on there just in case there was a last minute.
First placeholder.
For a placeholder, right. Another agenda item this evening is the first reading of Policy 1110, School District Legal Status.
As the board will recall, we have been in the process for the past couple of years of working with policy consultants from the Illinois Association of School Boards to review and update our policies, all of our policies, and we are just beginning the process now of bringing forward those to you systematically to begin looking them at kind of policy by policy. And so we have a whole first section. We'll get a whole section done tonight. Those are 3 policies. The rest of the sections won't be this easy or this quick. This brief. But Kane Osborne, our Deputy Superintendent, is really taking the lead on working with legal counsel as well as the IASB to review the policy. And the majority, just setting the stage, majorities are going to come as a result of changes in legislation, new laws, and new information that has come forward. And that's most often the case. But so we'll begin with 1.10. Kane, any comments that you have on that one?
You can see in board docs that really those are almost what you'd call cosmetic changes, syntactical changes that are consistent with all the press changes. For instance, Board of Education instead of school district is outlined, and others references that are made for 1.10. Other than that, there is not anything substantial in this change.
Thank you. Any questions about this? We'll move on to the next policy. Again, these are very brief. We won't be able to expedite, the discussions won't be this expedited with other policies, I'm quite sure. Again, the reading of policy number 1.20, School District Organization and Operations.
Okay, so for this one, it just has, again, nothing that would be marked as substantial changes from the current board policy. It's ones that are consistent with what press is recommending, largely syntactical changes, except in the end of 1.20, it does have an addition that is not in the current policy, and that's that paragraph indicating that the district enters into and participates in joint programs and intergovernmental agreements and gives some parameters for those.
But just for clarification, that's a policy recommendation from IASB, not necessarily a customized need that we had, correct?
Correct. That is not directed at us, but is part of the press recommendations that IASB is issuing generally.
And thank you for all the red line versions, too. It really is very,
Mhm.
very
Very
necessary. Yeah.
I would love to take credit for that, but Ms. Bell has done an excellent job in getting us those.
There's that team. Okay.
I have a question for you. Under the school district is approximately 32 miles in size, and you kind of tighten up the language and you say unincorporated Will County. Is there a reason that it doesn't say like part of unincorporated DuPage County?
That was just, not that I know of. In fact, that was just raised this evening by somebody. We're going to look into that. We could come back with a change including that.
That's at Century Hill.
Yeah, it's consistent with
And
what the
Steeple Run.
board had before. So press, in working with us, these aren't all just general press recommendations. Some of them are custom, so when they do more customized ones, they're just looking at what we currently have, and they might not have looked at that either. So we'll come back after looking at it with the appropriate language regarding that.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Good. And finally, first reading of policy number 1.30, school district beliefs, vision, mission, and school district standards.
So I'm going to speak first, and then we'll let Kane take over for any other things. But you'll notice in there that there's some language in there referencing school district standards from a process that was conducted by the district in the late 1990s to identify these standards. I believe we have a board member who was a teacher member of that committee at the time. Essentially, it refers to the graph that's over to Dr. Hester's left. Don't have much of the historical perspective on this necessarily in terms of at what point discussion or conversation about use of these standards had stopped, but it's really something that hasn't continued. But because it has some history in the district and work, we kept it in there at this point. And if it's something that the board would like to keep in there, we can do that. But it's language really that standard bearer process that we have moved away from, and it's kind of really not relevant at this time. So, Kane, I'll let you talk about any other changes that we have.
Actually, there aren't really any substantial changes. In fact, there aren't any, but we did want to go ahead and put this before the board for that reason, because when press sent it back to us, we did look and realize that those standards were not something that were up to date, so to speak.
Yeah, not living, breathing documents.
Exactly.
Right.
So we thought it was a good opportunity to bring it before the board and have that conversation.
Right. Okay, sure.
So do we know when the transition away from those being living, breathing, was that like between superintendents? Was that, I mean?
Tim can speak to that.
Yeah, so we have a few cabinet members who can speak to that. Mr. Waringo, why don't you go ahead?
Don Weber was the primary force behind that, and in the interim between superintendents after that, it became kind of a part of the school improvement process, but more unsaid, and we've gone away from that language during that tenure of the next superintendent.
And we've had a couple superintendents since then. So, and I don't really remember at least in my tenure, there hasn't since.
I mean, being a part of that, it was a huge initiative at the time, and so this is very near and dear to my heart. I don't know. I know that. I know that it's not living and breathing, but I guess I kind of question as to why. I mean, it was something that we spent a lot of time and effort and energy to work on, and I'm just wondering why it was lost, and if it's something that we should at least, I'm not saying resurrect, but at least relook at before we just dump.
Sure, and that's why we didn't just dump it before we came in. So I'll let Tim talk about how some of this really applies in terms of current context.
Sure. We've, in the school improvement process, we've moved on to something that actually embraces a lot of the concepts of what's happened in the standard bearers, but is instead more based in the research that is current. And so the Rising Star process actually incorporates a lot of these ideas and the research that Schlettke did in the standard bearers process, but then puts it in a present tense construct as well. as well as instructionally. Things like the design qualities that we used for many years in our classroom, those concepts are not lost, but instead they're put in the context of present day literature and also work that's being done by our Learning Services Department in terms of what they're using. So.
Susan.
One time when we painted this room, that was sitting on the ground. The picture was sitting on the ground, and I remember we talked about, was it going to go back up or not? And what was the woman's name who was the consultant that came in and taught it all? Do you remember, with Lenore? And what came to be at the time was that it's embedded in what we do, even though we don't follow these rules.
The name Standard Bearer probably would be foreign to some people, right?
Right, but it was like, do you still feel that it's embedded in what we do?
Not the term, not its definition.
But the standards, when you look at part of our policy.
I think, as Tim said, in different contexts, sure. I think let's look at standard number 2. For sure, we learned that, and that was reaffirmed through the entire future focus process. Right. Our mission and our beliefs and who we are as a school district is alive and well, right. And we believe in through our conversation, that the mission drives what we do, and that's how we really want to assess the success of our students. So, throughout these things, yes, for sure, technology, the use of technology. You see the term of employed technology. Now we see the integration of technology and the use of technology throughout everything that we're doing, as evidenced by the Project Lead the Way presentation we had tonight. So many of the standards that are listed here are vibrant and part of what we do, but not in this particular context. Mm-hmm. As it's presented, like, for example, on the pie on the wall. It's not something that's specifically referred to in the way that it is now, but more embedded in current practice through things such as future focus or through things such as the Rising Star School Improvement Process and the work that we do in our schools.
So does it belong in our policy?
I don't think in this context it does.
But if we get rid of it here, does it mean we're just wiping it out of what we do?
No. We could look at ways to maybe bring forward some current language that we use in terms of relationship with Rising Star and other processes that we do.
Yeah, update
if that's something that the board would be interested in.
Michael?
Yeah, I would suggest, things change. I mean, in any other institution, 16 years, and obviously not looking at this all the time. I think we need to move on. Also, I question whether the policy on something like this that does change needs to be part of our policy. This seems a little specific. It's more like, rather than strategic thinking, it's a little more tactical thinking. And I agree 100% with what Dan said. I mean, are we employing technology? Yeah, absolutely. Are we doing it because of standard number 9? I'm pretty sure no, we're not. And are we going to stop employing technology because we take this section out? Yeah, I don't think so either. I'd rather have this more compact, leave the specific stuff to, not to policy, but to procedures and stuff like that. And that also makes it a lot more flexible going forward, especially, when we look at, online blending, online learning, and blended learning is not mentioned anywhere in here. But that could become a bigger and bigger part, and there's all sorts of stuff that goes there. So I would be, initially I would be in favor of, cutting it out. It's not something we use in this context, in this structure, and keeping more focused and using procedures to be more flexible going forward on these types of emphasis items.
I think the constant and the current has to be, the beliefs and the vision and the mission that guide us, and then allow the fluidity and the ability to be a little bit nimble and flexible beyond that, and operationalize what the beliefs, the vision, and the mission are telling us through school improvement plans and initiatives that we bring forward. Certainly the strategic blueprint that we bring forward with feedback from our community, feedback from the Board of Education, will be operationalized. But at this point, I'm comfortable recommending to the Board of Education that this policy would include the beliefs, the vision, and the mission.
And I guess the thing that I had to read a couple times when I read this was the develop shared understanding of need for change. I read those words a couple of times and I thought, wait a minute, the only thing that is certain that I've seen in my years here is change. So I wasn't quite sure, and then, collaboration, it's in our mission statement. So it's an interesting, I don't think we are saying they're not appropriate or they're not worthy. They're certainly important words, but are they antiquated, I guess?
I think what we've lost in the, like, and I would agree, we've moved on, just so that you know where, I mean, like,
Yeah.
even though I was part of it, I think that, you know,
15
from
years.
98 to now, we can move on. But I think what's lost when you just read through these standards is every one of these was like a mini future focus. It was a collaboration of team of administrator, teacher, parents, community members on every one of these standards that developed what they thought the district should be looking forward to in each of these standards. And so that develop a shared understanding for the need of change was very similar to some of the things that we went through with Future Focus. And that's what I'm afraid of being lost. Not the wordage in the policy, but I just am curious if anybody has, you know, through the transition has gone back and said there's a lot of value in what was done in those years. There's at least 2 solid years that was spent on that. So that's all I wanted to make sure we had.
I mean, it seems to me that this shaped who we are now, right? I mean, these guiding principles shaped who we are now. We just want to update it to what we're doing, right?
Well, either update it or say it's obsolete. This is obsolete, or maybe we don't.
Well, I don't know if it's obsolete seems strong, but it formed the foundation for how we operate. I mean, all these are standards that we employ. We just don't refer back to them anymore because we do them as culturally. They're already ingrained. And so updating it would seem appropriate after this time period.
Well, I mean, I would suggest instead of updating it, because they do change, that they become part of procedures. I mean, are we going to start writing in, you know, we have a future focus, are we going to start changing our policy after every future focus we have? I mean, I can't believe we didn't share beliefs and vision before 98, or that we didn't provide ongoing support before 98. I mean, these are nice. I mean, they're great. They were a tool used apparently for several years, and specifically. But, you know, my big point is I'm not sure that they just belong in our policy. I would rather see us keep a more nimble approach to these kind of specific items and keep the policies on a broader level.
I'm not saying they belong in the policy. I'm saying they shape the foundation for who we are now. And maybe they need some adjustment.
So here's the relationship that I see. So, you know, I looked at, knowing that this is a model policy recommended by AASB, I looked at a few other districts to see how they have their 130. And ours goes into much greater detail, the current policy, than many districts and many other high-achieving districts. Most are focused on the beliefs and the mission or the vision or what their philosophy of education is. So I think Mike's point that he makes is something that could be valid, and then you look at what future focus and the strategic blueprint will eventually bring forward could be attached to this policy as the current procedures or the things that are guiding us based off of the beliefs, the mission, and the vision that we have in place. Those seem to be the things that are going to endure and stay with us. The mission, again, was reaffirmed through the whole process, known and valued by the community, so it would be my recommendation that's the type of language you want in the policy, what's going to be enduring.
Kristen?
And it's interesting, the huge contrast between those other parts of the policy and this. You know, like, we refer to those first 3 constantly. I mean, they're stated, restated. Whereas the other, I don't know that I would have known that they were in there, or that they, you know.
Right. And, you know, the thing that I think I would like to look into, and again, they're certainly the foundation. Obsolete was not the right choice of words, or the best choice of words, I guess. My point is, this all started before the '02 referendum. And I remember that was an education fund referendum. You know, everything kind of has a cycle. Go out and really get a better understanding of the community. I wasn't a part of this. I guess I feel like I was at a meeting or two, but I didn't have a big part in this. And really trying to get a handle on where everyone thought everyone was going. And it was laborious. It took a lot of time. But what we're trying to do is make sure things look current, and I guess maybe there's a little bit of it's hard to let go, but I don't think we're saying they're not valued. some of them, when I look at them, I think employ technology. Really, we're going to one-to-one computing. So this looks like we were trying to get technology in the classroom. It was a different world. It was just a different world. So maybe everyone would be more comfortable if we had a little bit more historical knowledge about it. Maybe that would do it. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I think that would help. I also think that, to what Mike said and what you just said, even looking at Standard 2 that develops shared beliefs and visions, that was not as part of the culture as it is now. It was, I mean, as a teacher in 94, I couldn't tell you what the mission statement was.
Yeah.
Okay, by the time we got to 98 and they really, started the standards, I could tell you what the mission statement, well, not only because I was on the Standard Bearer, but Kitty is shaking her head as well. I don't want to speak for you, but it was not part of the culture of District 203 to know what the mission and vision was until after this. So the foundation piece, yeah.
Right. And I know Susan Price was involved in it. Wasn't able to be here this evening, but she was also involved in this as a community member too, and have a little bit of perhaps perspective on it. But maybe it would be worthwhile if there's someone that can help the bridge or help with the objective as to why it was done. That maybe would make people feel more comfortable understanding that you move on and all you're trying to do is make it a more macro look
You want to make it in today's words.
Right.
That's
Sounds good.
which is important.
I'm not sure I know, I'm clear on what the board's direction would be on this.
So let's.
Clear as mud.
You said other districts have much more compact
Right.
1.3s. That's what I think you should probably try to achieve.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, I also heard that, Jackie, say that a little bit of history would be to understand this a little better before we eliminate it, correct?
Right. I think that
Okay.
if there's either someone on staff or someone in the community, it sounds like not everyone's comfortable saying, putting a big circle around.
So
and deleting it.
what we'll do then, and maybe help you, I'll say what I think we're going to do.
Okay, there you go.
Which
That's a
is
good
to
plan.
focus on a more compact policy 1.30, which summarizes current state, but then also provide for the Board of Education with that rationale or recommendation for why it appears the way it does. Good?
Great.
Okay.
Because I think the question comes down to if we really do, as board members, follow our policy and we are in our governance roles, and we look up and say, my 7 or 8 years, I've never referred to any of that, right? We just have to say, it needs updating, and in the course of updating, maybe we keep to something that's more macro. How am I doing? Okay. Okay, doke. Sounds good. So you will come back with a little bit of history and a proposal of how it would look one way out or not out, or a combination.
I don't know how much history you'll find, but I have some if you need it.
I do still have information in the office, so I can get to it.
Yeah. Okay, hold on one second. Computer went to sleep. Well, goodness, we are down to schedule of events. And I think we've already, the rescheduled Future Focus tomorrow evening at Naperville North High School in the auditorium, those that can make it. Anything else that needs to be highlighted in upcoming events? This is everyone's time for their plug. If not, I will entertain a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Kristen?
Could you talk a little bit about the new one in red, the Focus 203?
I can give you a tease on it. How's that? We are in the early planning process of it, and until we have some staff members in People Services with Dr. Foley's team, we're working on a presentation without an official title yet, but one of the things we heard through Future Focus was the need to engage the community in conversation about social emotional health and well-being, and so we're working on a community engagement session modeled after the Future Focus format, using the title of Focus 203, where we will be focusing it in on a specific relevant topic to engage community in information and education, the opportunity to communicate and talk about it, and then collaborate moving forward. So.
Okay, so there would be other topics in something like this Future Focus.
This is a single topic, so this will not necessarily.
Variety of topics, perhaps. Good, sounds good. that's what we said. We would not future focus. It was not going to end. It was a living, breathing document. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second? We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you, everyone that's here and on the World Wide Web. Thank you, thank you.